Finance Committee, June 20th, 5 p.m. roll call. Mr. Jones. Here. Mr. Gwaltney. Mr. Allemon. Mrs. Smith.
Here.
And Mr. Hart.
Here.
We have a quorum.
We do.
I would make a motion to dispense with the reading and approve the minutes as presented. Second.
Second.
Okay, wonderful. We have a motion from Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Hart. Any other questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Same sign.
That was just minutes. That was
It's
easy.
3-0. That passes. Okay, starting at the top. 250417, request for consideration of 18th Street Revitalization Project. Hollis, you want to give us an update?
Mr. Gwaltney is here.
The sign looks good. It's a very nice. I hope it looks as good as what the signs, portray it. Any questions?
I think it's.
Look like you have a question.
No,
Yes,
I
sir.
think it's-
Mr. Qualls.
I was gonna ask, for the sidewalk wraps around the window and going into, I think, 28th court. Looks like, yeah, on the south side where it wraps going down toward Village and Jim's. It looks like they filled in what would have been the median strip between the curb and the sidewalk, the concrete. Is that by design? Because I thought it was supposed to be grass, right? A bush. Okay. Okay, yeah. I was just curious, 'cause I think it was poured that way, and then a couple of days later, it got filled in concrete, so. Okay, cool, thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, great. Any other questions? We're going to carry that over without objection. Thank you for that continued work. It's going to look great. 010522, request for audit presentation. And we have our auditor here somewhere. Yeah, come on up here. Just come up here.
Y'all, this is Jenny Gray. She's with BMS&S, and I think this is y'all's, I believe, 4th year to do our audit, I believe. So, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Jenny Gray. I work for BMSS. I'm a senior manager and focus on local municipality audits. So I know Robert will be glad for me to be done and on to the next thing. So we've got the financial statements. We're working on the final copy of those, and I know that Melody and Robert are planning on giving their audit versus fiscal policy report at the next meeting, so we will have copies of the book with the financial statements. But I wanted to kind of come ahead of that and just give y'all a little briefing or debriefing. The audit went well this year. We had we got to kind of a little bit towards the end of it, and we're going through some capital asset information. And as y'all know, the city's about to migrate to Encode 10, and so we've kind of paid a little bit of extra attention to that this year because we want to make sure that the data that gets migrated over to that will go as smoothly as possible. But we ended up, I went back and, coded a lot of stuff in Excel because that's the world that I like to work in. And so that took us a little bit of extra time, but we got everything wrapped up on that last week. So we should be good to go. But we had an unmodified opinion, which means that we didn't see anything that we thought would be a material misstatement in our opinion. We didn't have to do a single audit this year, even though the city got funding related to ARPA funds from the federal government. That money was not expended before the end of the year, so we'll have one for fiscal year 2022, but didn't have one for 2021.
That's called a single audit?
Yes, yeah, it's basically any federal funds that are spent, we roll them up into one and test the major programs there so that we're not having to do an individual audit of every single federal program that the city has. So yeah, we'll have that for next year. But the way that the city operates, I know you guys operate using fund accounting, but for financial statement purposes, we're also supposed to report at the government-wide level which means basically we take what y'all operate in with the fund financials and go back and add capital assets and long-term liabilities. So for that, at that level this year, the city had an increase in their net position, which would be likened to net would be your equity if you were, in a business situation, had an increase of $3.1 million. So, that's something that you want to see. The unrestricted net position of the city was still at a deficit of $2.1 million, and that's basically from implementing GASB 68, which was putting the pension liability on the books. But again, that's still $3 million better than where it finished up for fiscal year 2020. So that's the government-wide level, but at the fund level, which is where you guys kind of operate, I wanted to kind of get into that. The city had a total of assets of $102.3 million. And then of that, $41 million of it was the general fund, and $21.6 million of that $41 million in assets for the general fund was cash. So, that's a healthy cash position. And then, of course, debt service had cash of $17.9 million. So that will be used to satisfy debt obligations that are coming up. And then the capital projects fund, which had your general obligation warrant fund money in it, had cash of $21 million. So you'll have money to be able to service debt and also to finish ongoing projects that you guys have started. So then the total fund balance for the city was $68.5 million, and of that, 29.7 of it was the general fund. So when you look at fund balance, like I know y'all have restricted funds for your debt service and your capital projects, and then some of your special revenue funds like gas tax, capital improvement funds, stuff like that. But the amount of unassigned fund balance in the general fund was $13.6 million. And so I looked at what the total expenditures were for just the general fund, which are your operating expenditures. And when I took that and divided it to try to get like how much it costs per day to run the city has enough in unassigned fund balance to last 128 days, which is 4 months, with nothing else coming in and only what y'all had this year going out for operations. So that's also something that I know you probably look at when you're.
Do we consider that we have a rainy day fund? I always thought it was about
That's not-
$11.5 million.
Yeah,
That's a
I did not
different
even count that in there.
fund. Okay.
Just went with the unassigned part. And then of course that we have it marked as assigned in the fund balance, in that 29 million. It's not considered to be unassigned because you guys have earmarked it for that. Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, and so, for the restricted fund balance, 9.5 million of that was for debt service, and then 12.2 million for capital projects. And then, of course, when y'all get your booklet, there is a reconciliation that shows here's what we did to the fund balance sheet to make it into the government-wide statement of net position. So it's got all, hey, here's where we added the assets, here's where we, took out the debt that was issued. That's, we had to add that back because on the fund level statements, that doesn't show up as a liability because it's long-term. So that'll be in there. And then you get to the statement of changes in revenues, expenditures, and fund balance, which is basically what y'all are looking at when y'all do your budget reports. So the total revenues for the city for fiscal year 2021 were $79.6 million. And obviously the top categories there were taxes, which was $66.5 million, and then licenses and permits, which were at $8 million. So total revenues just for the general fund were $57 million for the year. And so then we went down to expenditures. The total expenditures were $59 million, and 38.8 of that was for the general fund for operations. And that's what I used to calculate, like what percentage of unassigned fund balance, I guess, would be reserved out of that total amount. For debt service, there was 13.1 million in expenditures. $1 million of that was for issuance cost of debt, and then the rest of it, of course, was for principal and interest. And then there was 4.8 million for the capital projects fund used to complete some of the projects y'all had going on, and for other capital purchases. Obviously, the city issued debt during fiscal year 2021 to do a refunding and then to be used for additional capital. And then when we got down and looked at the total change in fund balance, the total change in fund balance for the general fund was a positive $269,000. And then there was a positive 3.2 million in debt service and a positive 9.9 million in capital projects, but part of that was moving money from the debt service fund when the debt was issued over to the capital projects fund. So really the 269,000 for the general fund was a positive and added to the fund balance for the year. And then, of course, there's a reconciliation from that to the statement of activities as well. And then we got down to our notes, and the notes to the financial statements didn't change significantly this year, just spells out the accounting policies. But the two main notes that I think probably are of value to you are the capital assets note, because it shows here's what we added this year, here's what our depreciation expense was this year, and then also the long-term liabilities note. So there was a net decrease in capital assets for the year of $2.5 million. And that was, there were $4.9 million worth of capital assets added, but there was also $7.4 million in depreciation for the year. So it was a net decrease, even though you were adding to your capital assets for this year. And then for the long-term liabilities, the notes payables and capital lease payables both decreased. There were no additions to those types of debt for the year, so they decreased by $1.2 million. And then, of course, we had new warrants that were issued during the year. Actually, two different sets of warrants were issued for fiscal year 2021, and so the total warrants increased by 17 million. So those are in the notes to the financial statements, and I think those are helpful because they kind of tie out what, the big lump number says on the financial statements. The net pension liability increased by $1.7 million. So the ending net pension liability for the city was $46.2 million. The planned fiduciary position as a percentage of net pension liability was 59.59%. This year it was 60.07% last year. So not a huge swing when you're looking at the overall percentage when you consider what I guess net position the pension plan is in.
If I might speak to that, it increased by 1.7, but we converted the tier 2 to tier 1, and that was $1 million cost in itself. So it's basically almost flat considering that action.
Yeah. And then the OPEB increased by $63,000. That's your health insurance for retirees. And then compensated absences actually decreased by $420,000. And I think, Robert, y'all did a holiday. Did y'all do a holiday pay?
We did a holiday payout.
Yeah, so that so that came into play. So the ending compensated absence number was 2.4 million. And then there's a pension note and an OPEB note that are in the notes to the financial statements that explain all of that and show what the changes are and what makes them up. And then there's upcoming GASB pronouncements, which
My favorite.
I like that part, but Robert probably doesn't. And then, of course, we have our required supplementary information, which is a budgetary comparison schedule. And like I said, that's something that Robert and Melody, they'll go through what the audit results said and then what the city's fiscal policies say and have a presentation for you, I think, at the next meeting. And then we have to add years of information related to the post-employment benefit plan and the pension plan every year until we get to 10 years. And since we implemented it, I think we're maybe at 6 years now, maybe 7. But we just added the column for this year to that. And that's really about it. I hope that, I know this is probably not, sometimes it's a lot to just, kind of go through it, but if you guys have any questions, you can reach out to me anytime.
This has been very helpful. Are there any questions from the committee?
Thank you, that's helpful just to understand it.
Yeah, what I'm proud of is that, we will have the follow-up meeting in terms of how we're doing regarding our fiscal policy. Do you feel like the fiscal policy is really helps us in terms of guidance?
I think it definitely helps to give guidance to what the goals are and to have a strategy, for long-term, something that you're working towards. And I also feel like, with the city of Homewood, I know y'all revisit it, so it's not like something that was put into place 20 years ago and there's no ability to change it. But I do think it helps to set goals and keep on track with, adding to a rainy day fund or certain projects that you want to finance, or here's how much, this is where we are on debt and here's what we have going on, and just to kind of help, set some I guess standards to measure, where the city stands and if you're charting with where you want to be.
And I know you were working in the conference room.
Yes, I ended up turning the heater on.
And it was 50, it literally, it felt
You
like
could hang meat in
55
there.
degrees
It's
in
like
there.
a
So
locker.
you'll be happy to know that we're getting a new system.
Yes, that will make that not
will
happen.
regulate the temperature.
Yeah,
so you
I
don't
was
have to have
I was
a-
trying to tough it out, and then finally I was like, okay, the ends of my fingers are starting to go numb, so I better just turn the
It
heater
is
on.
cold.
That was a good expenditure, so we're eager to get that
Yeah.
in place.
That
But
will
thank
get
you
that
for all of your help with that,
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah, I appreciate y'all, and I
And
appreciate your
I gotta
staff.
give them a compliment. I mean, when I came here, and even before Melody came here, the fixed asset module has always been a disaster. And we have just really struggled every year to try to balance our assets. And back in years past, they put everything the city purchased, a $10 chair, a $5 phone, $100 whatever, it was thousands of pages. And because we are converting, we're in code basically said, we can't import all this. You need to clean it up. And I spent hours and hours, and I finally threw my hands up and I said, Jeannie, you gotta help, I can't do it. And they came in and she's
If I can
spent
dump it into
a lot
Excel.
of hours.
If I
Yeah.
can dump it into Excel, I can,
pivot tables.
yes, yes.
So that we're gonna have good, clean information going into our new financial software, and we'll be able to manage it better going forward, which will be a tremendous help.
I guess the proper motion would be to accept the
Yes.
audit presentation.
I would make that motion.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Smith, second by Mr. Harden. I heard you first. Any other questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. That's 4-0. 4-0. Thank you so much.
Perfect, thank
Thank
you
you,
y'all.
Jeannie.
And
We appreciate
Robert
it.
and Melody have my contact info, so if y'all need anything, don't hesitate to reach out.
Correct.
I like to talk about this kind of stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That stuff gives me chills. I love hearing about that. I really do. I really do. Okay, 210522, request to present fiscal year-end 9/30/21 audit results per fiscal policy. So now that we have the report, then in the next meeting, we will have that presented to us in a document, so you'll be able to see that and see how we've passed all of our different tests within the mid-year review. So without objection, we'll carry that over until the next meeting. Okay, 010622, request to authorize the mayor to sign agreement to join the Bob Board National Purchasing Cooperative. Chief Hill?
Yes, sir. It's a board for, it's like the government contract state bid list, HGAC, it's just a bid list. that we're
We got
able to
a,
follow.
we got
This
a
is
copy
it
of
right
it here,
here.
okay.
Yes,
So,
sir.
just
And then
to,
also there's the Attorney General's letter, I think, which one's.
Yes, on the
attached to it.
return
Yeah.
general letter to back.
Yeah.
The uniforms we're thinking about going to are on that bid list, and it's cheaper than bidding it out, and we expect uniforms to go up, and this way we get a secure price. And if they go up, we don't have to use them because we're not stuck in a contract.
Right.
what is that other cooperative that we're a member of?
We're a member of PACA, which is in Jefferson
No,
County.
you remember it's a national thing that we
There's one out of
talked about?
Texas.
I think it's HGAC, Houston, Galveston.
Yeah, HGAC, Houston Galveston Co-op.
No, that's not the one,
Okay.
there's another
There's a-
national one that
there's
we're
a-
a member of.
The government, it's called.
Anyway,
GSA.
so this is specific for your department, for the citywide?
Citywide, anybody can use it.
Okay, okay.
It's just that's what we're planning to do.
Y'all are
Okay.
planning on
So
doing it.
you're requesting the mayor sign this so we can join this cooperative? Is there any cost associated?
No, sir.
Chief Hill, is it, I mean, do we go as far down the road as buying fire trucks from it, or is it just more uniforms and stuff like that?
We're purchasing uniforms off of it. Now, there are other bid lists that we can buy fire trucks on, which we're looking at, but this is not one of them. We haven't used this one for that purpose.
These checks are time sensitive in some occasions also. The letter that you'll see is attached has an expiration period, which that means you won't renew it. But not, you can't purchase it without, outside of the timeline that the Attorney General approves, or not, form of vote.
December 31st.
December 31st, okay. All right, I would make a motion to, the mayor signing the letter to join the Board National Purchasing Cooperative.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gwaltney. Okay. You need a copy, Mr. Kendrick, do you have it?
No, sir, I haven't.
Okay, great. Okay, it's been motioned, seconded. Any further questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, by the same sign. 4-0, that passes. And Chief, don't go anywhere. 020622, request to change FLSA period for firefighters from 26-day to 27-day period.
So right now, we're on a 13-shift Kelly Day cycle, and so they work 39 days, then they get a Kelly Day, or we have to pay them overtime. We would change the Kelly Day, the pay period from 26 days to 27 days, and what that would do is put us on a 9-day Kelly cycle, and they would get a Kelly Day every 9 shifts.
Instead of every
And
13.
it would, instead of every 13, it would not change their gross annual pay. They would be working less hours, so their hourly rate would go up a little bit. They'll kind of reduce their hours by, depending on what day they start on, somewhere between 72 and 96 hours
Over a year period?
over a 1-year period.
But then the hourly rate would go up to basically balance that out.
Right, the hourly rate is just going to go, their gross annual salary will stay the same.
Yeah.
So we're not asking for a budget amendment.
Right.
But the hourly rate goes up because they're working less
To
hours.
compensate for the hours, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Is the idea that we're gonna pay less overtime?
No, sir, that's not the intent. The intent is to just try to match some of the cities around us, because we're losing a lot of firefighters to municipalities. We actually lost one on Friday. He went to Tarrant. Tarrant, actually.
So you feel like this will help morale?
I think it'll help morale. I think it'll.
Help retention
Retention,
and
because
recruitment.
Vestavia's on this cycle. Birmingham's on a modified version of it. It's not exactly this. They have something kind of odd. But most of the cities around us are doing that. Mount Brook's still on a 13-shift Kelly Day cycle. And I'm not sure about Hoover, but all the other municipalities around us have pretty much gone with this.
So we're looking for all kinds of tools to help with recruiting and retaining
Correct.
our employees.
Because the guy we lost today, or last week, was he was a pretty seasoned guy, 12 years.
He's not gonna have as much fun over there in Tarrant as he does in Homewood.
Well, I guess it depends on who you ask. I think so. I agree with you, but, you know. It's,
All right. Okay, and any comment from the mayor's office
That's for the mayor.
Yeah.
supports this? Okay,
You were in the meeting, so, yeah.
okay. Any questions for the chief?
No, but I'd make a motion to approve the change as requested.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Smith, second by Mr. Hart. If you could, Chief, just for the finance committee's edification, just if you could provide a little bit of information on the background of how all this works, I think that would help me. Just, kind of like what is our structure now, and how is the new structure gonna work?
Sure.
If you could just put some,
Absolutely.
just some bullet points like that would help.
And just on maybe like an average bump that you're gonna see as a result of the hour decrease in pay. So that'd be good.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the
So
question.
because they're working less hours and you said their hourly rate goes up, from today's number to what's going to be, I'd like to understand like the delta on average for each person by percent or something like that along those lines.
Okay.
Not for every
They're
individual,
hourly.
but just in general across the board.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Okay, did we vote on that?
No, I don't think we voted. We had a motion.
No, we got a motion and a second. Okay, sorry, I got distracted.
That's
Okay, any other questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign, 4-0. You got that, Smith and Hartman.
Yes, sir.
Okay, last item, 030622, request to amend 21-22 budget for fuel costs. Robert, you're still waiting on
All the
department-
information to come in, yes,
department
sir.
heads to get you the information for that.
So that we could carry.
So
that
we'll
over.
carry that over without objection until we can get all of that information. Is there anything else for finance?
What about that bid then?
I thought everybody was here for finance. Are y'all not here for finance? Gosh, okay. Well, with that, we're adjourned.